Welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are now on to episode 13, Beyond the Sea. Now, I know, Brian, you've been itching to get to this one. You've been talking about it for a few episodes now. So, why does this one ring such a good tone with you? Why does it stick in the memory banks?
Man alive. It just, I mean, we'll get into it as we review it, but good grief. There's so much to love about this episode. It's kind of a retelling of Silence of the Lambs. This is like a Silence of the Lambs episode, in that you've got Clarice Starling, or in this case Dana Scully, going into a prison and talking with a nutjob serial killer in order to apprehend another nutjob serial killer who's out in the real world. So it's a very condensed version of Silence of the Lambs, but yeah, I love it. Just the performances, particularly the two central performances by Gillian Anderson and Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif, man, in this episode, good grief. I don't think he's ever been better, to be honest. You take any of his film roles, I don't think he's been as good as he is here in this episode. So yeah, just love it. This it stuck with me ever since I first saw the series. This episode really stuck with me, and it's still one of my favourites. And I don't just mean of season 1; I mean of the whole show.
High praise indeed. I've got to say, this one didn't really strike a chord with me at the time. I don't remember it in any way, shape or form, so it felt wholly fresh when I watched it earlier on today. So let's just dive straight into it and see what it throws up.
You're making me nervous.
As well you should be, Ryan. So the episode opens up with Scully at her home with her mum and dad. And there's quite obviously a strained relationship with the father going on in this scene. They seem almost struggling to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something of a fractured relationship between Scully and her father. You can see Scully's mother pushing him to just, say something. Just say something nice about her career. But it's all about her career. It seems like he was very disapproving of her choice to go into the FBI. Mm-hmm. So you can see that her mother really cares a lot more. And her dad cares about her. Her dad loves her. But he's never been sold on the idea of her being in the FBI.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the following scene after that, we have Scully on the couch sleeping, and she wakes up to see her dad silently talking on a chair, which is creepy as all hell.
What it's so eerie. It's so eerie. It's just like it sends a chill down your spine, because it's just like, what's he saying? It's just off. It's just really, It's just not right, is it?
No, not at all. It's just a weird image to see his lips moving, but no volume coming from him at all. It's just weird. Yeah. And then the phone rings. Scully goes to answer it, and it's her mum on the phone to say that her father's passed away. She looks back at the chair and nobody's there, and then this tingles in the back of the neck start to go.
Oh man, like you just describing it now, I've literally got tingles going down my neck now, just because. Yeah, just such a brilliantly pieced together scene.
And it's amazing how in that minute and a half, you're hooked. You're instantly hooked. You want to know exactly what's going on next in this one, because it's freaking you out. Because Scully, the disbeliever, has seen something that she can't rationalise or explain.
But it's just like, in that opening sequence, we get so much information, so much character development, just from two little sequences, like we learn so much about Scully and her relationship with her parents just in those few moments. It's brilliantly written and, like I say, brilliantly pieced together.
Yeah. So then we have the theme tune, and then we go into the sort of B storyline to mention, and it's about a couple who are making out in a car next to a lake, and a police officer sort of chaps on the window, stop what you're doing, get out of the car please. And when the guy gets out of the car, he looks down and notices this police officer's got on tan chinos and boots.
Yeah, what kind of police officer is this? And he kind of just cold cocks him with his torch, and so
by the time he realises something's off, it's too late.
This is like, again, going back to Silence of the Lambs, reminds me of the Buffalo Bill moment when he entices the woman into the back of the van. Only this, so it's about projecting yourself as something that you're not in order to entice your victim into into a position where you want them. So he pretends to be this police officer, someone that people are clearly going to listen to and respect, and by the time the kid realises, it's too late. So, yeah, again, a bit of a Buffalo Bill vibe.
Yeah, and it's very well shot as well with the flashlight that's always pointing into camera to give that glare off it, and it's always in front of the police officer's face, so you're never too sure quite what it looks like, what's going to happen, or that. It's just a very nicely shot sequence as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we move on to the FBI HQ with Mulder asking Scully how she is after the death of her father.
Yeah, but he doesn't call her Scully, he calls her Dana.
Yeah.
And we even see this kind of reaction from her where she kind of, Dana, it's like, wow, you're pulling out the big guns, you're using my first name, this must be serious. And it's just like, yeah, they do always call each other Mulder and Scully. It's like, someone calling me Lomax, and they always call each other by their second name. So when he pulls out the first name card, he's concerned. Again, a brilliant piece of writing. Just by the use of her name, it really changes the tone of their relationship. So
I didn't actually catch that one at all, Brian. I didn't notice that. Yeah. So.
Well, definitely there. So, like I said, I've seen this 100 times, but so
it's quite a subtle sort of inflection as well. It's not something you would, if you're not really listening for it. I suppose you wouldn't notice it, but it's a nice touch.
Definitely.
And then she almost instantaneously distracts Mulder by asking him about the case. I'm fine. What you got there?
Yeah, she needs to work just to take her mind off her father, and Mulder's like really concerned, kind of thinks maybe she should take some time off, but so they just get straight to it, and then Mulder goes into Basil exposition mode and just kind of talks us through the case, which is quite an interesting one, I think.
Yeah, and he says that he's leaving to go investigate or talk to Boggs, and she says she'll come along. The funeral's in the afternoon, and then she'll leave straight after that and just go with Mulder.
Yeah, but what we get from this scene as well is something we're not used to seeing from Mulder, which is disbelief. He essentially mocks this man who we've not seen yet, this Luther Lee Boggs, this guy that Mulder helped to put away into prison, onto death row, in fact. A man who went to death row but kind of got a stay of execution as he was sat in the chair. But Mulder doesn't believe him. So this guy claims to have psychic predictions. He claims that he can speak with the dead or hear what the dead are saying. And Mulder's just having none of it. He's out and out, just thinks this guy's a fraud. He's doing anything he can to get off death row. And normally when we see Mulder, well, this isn't the Mulder we're used to seeing. He's usually the one who'd be like, yeah, come on, let's go and investigate. Psychic predictions, yeah.
He's always looking for the wacky and the weird and to break the preconceptions that most people have. But this time he's the one with the preconceptions. He knows Boggs, or he did know him, and he's putting his perception onto that. He's not looking for the extraordinary as he normally does, and it's a strange role reversal, because we know that Scully's already seen something a little bit off, a little bit strange, and then Mulder's blatantly going, nope, I don't need to see anything, I don't want any kind of proof, I'm not going to buy it, I am being completely sceptical of this person straight off the bat.
But it's one that we can buy as well, that's the thing. Like if we go back, I know I liked the episode Fire and you didn't, And you had some issues with that episode about Mulder's character. You felt like he was doing things he wouldn't normally do.
Uh-huh.
And in one sense, this is something that Mulder wouldn't normally do. But you buy it because of his history with this guy, because he knows him, he put him away. This is like one occasion where actually, I can buy that Mulder isn't taking this guy on. He's not taking him seriously.
Mm-hmm. And it explains to Scully that Boggs has requested that Mulder come and speak to him. Because Mulder, wrote a profile on him, and Boggs felt that it was pretty accurate.
Yeah, he thought he got him.
Yeah.
Which says something about Mulder, I guess.
It does, and as Scully agrees to go with him, and Mulder leaves the room, she opens up the files and looks to the folder that says Visionary Encounters on it. Pulls it out just for a moment, and then pushes it back in.
Yeah, so there's that kind of searching there under the skin, but then you've got that denial, kind of push it away, don't deal with it as well, which is, again, indicative of Scully's character from what we know of her.
And then from that scene we go straight on to Scully's dad's funeral, which is one awkward scene. I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be kind of comedic almost, because it feels, and I'll explain myself in that one, it feels kind of sad because it's like a little tugboat in the middle of the water, a small group of people on the pier kind of watching it, and then the Beyond the Sea song playing. I think it's the music, the small group of people with the boat, everything together just seems strange.
Yeah, but Scully calls that out. Yeah. She says to her mother, he was entitled to a proper Navy funeral, because her dad was in the Navy. And so she's like, Scully she's kind of in your boat. She's like, what are we doing out here? Just a few of us in this little tugboat. But it's Scully's mother who's like, no, actually, you know what? This is what he would have wanted. And again, it's, this is the first time we've been introduced to Scully's parents. And they build up such a huge picture of who these people are in such a few scenes, just like a few short scenes. We've had that introduction, so we get a sense of the history between Scully and her father and his disapproval of her career choice. We get a sense of her mother's love and her kind of being a mediator between the two. And then here we get to see that actually, you know what? Whereas we might have seen a bit of coldness from her father in the beginning, in those opening scenes, in this sequence we learn that actually he is a bit of a family man, maybe a private man, someone who cares more about the people who are closest to him being an event like this, rather than having the, all guns blazing, all the bells and whistles on, with people there who actually might not even be that bothered. So again, just something like this gives us a bit of insight into this family and who this man was, who we've only seen in one scene.
And then it's got the moment with Scully turning around to her mum and just saying to her, was he proud of me? To which she replies, he was your father. It's such a strange answer, but it comes back later on in the episode again. But it just shows to Scully's almost need. It's such a strange question to ask when your father's getting laid to rest, almost when you're saying goodbye. And you're asking your mum, his wife, who's now a widow, was he proud of me? It says so much with just that simple, small question.
It does. It really does. It gets straight to the point. Like so much of this episode, the writing, it just gets straight to the point, and it uncovers so much about these characters in, like I say, just a few short sentences or a few short scenes.
And let's move on to one of which I can only assume is going to be one of the best characters in the entire series, Luther Boggs and his kiss kill tattoos on his knuckles. Brad Dourif, who is Right off the bat, great.
I mean, I like Brad Dourif anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know much about Brad Dourif, but he actually has a stammer in real life.
Right.
And the reason he's always cast as these weird kind of serial killer, twisted type of people is that he has learnt to control his stammer through this particular way of speaking. Unfortunately, that particular way of speaking sounds pretty creepy. So he always, so he's been typecast in these roles, but he's so damn good at them. And I'll repeat my earlier statement. As much as I like the guy, as someone like Grima Wormtongue or as Chucky in the Child's Play movies, I just don't think he's ever been better than he has in this episode. I just think it's a tour de force. I hate using that phrase, but it is. It's just for an episode of television. This is what I would expect to pick up an award come TV award season for best actor in a single episode, because it is a fantastic performance and it's really raw. Absolutely raw. This guy just is a ball of emotion. It's pouring out of him. Like we see later on in the episode, we get this idea of all these kind of spirits of the dead, and particularly his victims that have gone into him. So you get this sense all the time that these things are under the skin, that they're kind of burrowing into him or burrowing out of him, and it's just like his eyes are always wet. Like there seems to be a tear rolling down his cheek a lot of the time through this episode, and that just feels like something trying to get out. And it's a cracking performance, and the way he switches as well between these, because he's channeling these spirits. And he switches between these different voices and these different personalities, and his whole body language changes instantly as he goes from one to the other. And it could feel horrible. It just couldn't work. This is something that could literally live or die on this performance. It could see. I mean, we'll get to it much later in the series. There's an episode with Mulder in which he does this. And it doesn't work. Props to David Duchovny. Love the guy. I think he's fantastic as Mulder. But he doesn't quite have this level of range. So when he's doing this version of Brad Dourif's kind of transformations, it's nowhere near as good. So yeah, that kind of shows you, I think, the difference, how this kind of thing can make an episode live or die. And yeah, Brad Dourif just kills it.
Yeah, I feel this scene's... It sets up the character very well with the tears rolling down his cheeks, like you said. They feel like real tears. His eyes are red. He's contorting his body. I think he does 3 different personalities in this opening scene, and they're all extremely distinctive of who they are. And it's almost who's necessary for that moment. So you've got a couple giving information, and then the one that comes out at the end, it's got an accent. He's a harder talking. He's more controlled, and he's the one that sort of barters for Boggs' life. We'll help you save the kids, but you have to give this man a stay of execution. Which is just a great... Because you believe in that character because of the accent, because of the mannerisms of the way he's speaking. I can envision that. I could envision that character completely.
Yeah.
Bargaining for this man's life, which was it's just a great scene. And yet you've still got Mulder, who's just convinced that he's at it.
And he's so convinced that he calls him out on it. He plays a trick on him using his New York Knicks T-shirt, something that will come up again in multiple episodes of the X-Files.
And that's when he gives it to Boggs, and Boggs starts to receive the spirits or tell them what they're going to happen. And he mentions an angel of stone, water falling, but it's not water, a condemned building. And that's when Mulder leans in close and just tells him, it's got nothing to do with the case.
Yeah.
And he seems almost vilified. He's kind of rubbing it in Boggs' face, just like, I've got you straight away.
Yeah. He's called him out, and it is in that moment you kind of feel embarrassed for Boggs because it's like when because of everything you've just witnessed, like the raw emotion from that performance that Dourif has just given. There's no reason to doubt what Mulder is saying at this point because this scene works on the belief that Boggs is channeling these spirits because of this piece of material he's holding. So when Mulder just says, "I tore this off my New York Knicks t-shirt, it has nothing to do with the crime," you do feel that moment of embarrassment that, oh, crap, I've been caught out.
You do, but it's definitely a hindsight moment because when you get to the end of the episode, you realise fairly quickly that it's all about Scully. This full episode is all about Scully.
Yeah.
And when the two of them first meet Boggs, one of the spirits within him says, "We are the past, we are the present, we are the future. We know everything." You know, so they know, they know that it's a trick. Yeah. And it's not for Mulder. They're saying these things for Scully.
Yeah.
Because Scully is going to notice these signs in the next scene, and it's all about her. So it's not about Mulder. Mulder may think he's won, but it's convincing Scully that his abilities are real. They know that ultimately the spirits know that they're not going to save Boggs. He's ultimately doomed. It's all about getting Scully to the place where she needs to be.
Yeah, definitely. It's a Scully-centric episode, no doubt. And all the better for it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
If Fire was Mulder-centric, then this is Scully's, and like definitely the better of the two. I mean, I liked Fire, but this is in a different league altogether, I think.
Just at the end of this scene, Boggs calls Scully Starbuck.
He sings Beyond the Sea as well, so he sings that song from her funeral. And it's a really creepy moment because they're leading him away, or they're about to lead him away, and like Scully's just leaving, and he just starts singing, somewhere. But it's just like, yeah, boom, it just hits you in the way that it hits Scully.
Yeah. And she just, Mulder's been all protective. Did he say something to you? And we've seen for previous episodes, Scully's the one that can handle herself. But she's just like, no, it's just I'm upset about my father. Which is technically kind of true. And then Scully's driving home, and she sees the Niagara Falls sign. She sees the angel statue and the condemned building, and she goes inside and finds this occult paraphernalia lying on the floor.
Yeah, so she's basically kind of finds the trophies that this kidnapper has left behind. So a necklace belonging to the victim. So she knows that this is where he was holding them. But she lies about it, about how she found it.
Yeah.
On the police report, she says that she saw suspicious activity, and Mulder's really hurt by this when he finds out later on. We'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, I mean, it is quite something that she has found this place because of the stuff that Boggs said, but she does lie about it. She's still not prepared to put herself out on a limb in the way that Mulder does.
Mm-hmm. And just quickly before we move on, inside of the building is really spooky and creepy. It's got all the hanging chains just dangling there, and it's really well shot. Just before it stumbles across the black candles and the sort of pentagram on the floor.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to go in there by myself.
Nope, not at all. And then we jump into Scully's room, where she's sitting looking at a chair, and there's just a flashing image of her father for a brief second, which is just, hairs in the back of the neck territory again.
The way it's shot as well, I instantly thought Stanley Kubrick, The Shining. Just this kind of front-facing position of the camera, in the way that Scully's looking directly into the camera, and then it flips, just like we have this flash of her father. It's not a prolonged shot. It's just this little quick kind of insert of a father. And it reminds me of, again, The Shining, the way that Kubrick inserts those kind of flashes of the young girls, the two twins, where they're normal, and then there's a flash of them like with blood everywhere, and it's horrific. But it's just like a stab in your eyes of just this quick flashing image. But the way it's shot just reminded me of the way Kubrick shot The Shining. It's very effective.
Oh, it's very effective. And then there's a knock at the door, and Mulder arrives, and he says that she tells him that she's found the scene because of Boggs.
And Mulder is pissed.
Yeah, to say the least.
And you can kind of understand it, because he takes so much crap from people for his, his spooky Mulder. And when she has found something based on the fact that she went off something supernatural, she went off the idea that Boggs was telling the truth. Yet she lied about it on the police report.
And then Scully says to Mulder, I thought you'd be pleased that I'd opened myself up to extreme possibilities.
Only open yourself up to extreme possibilities when they're the truth. And that goes for Boggs and your father. So, it's Mulder's just... He ain't having any of it, is he? Just...
No, it's proper role reversal here.
Really is.
Mulder's, I've got my notes. Mulder's become the cynic, and he's convinced of Boggs' guilt. And you can see here that there's nothing going to shake him from that. He's made up his mind, and that is it. So after that scene, we move on to Mulder's fake article in the newspaper, which takes Scully a few minutes to actually latch onto.
And again, this is what brings me back to Silence of the Lambs, because this is taken right out of Manhunter. Right out of Red Dragon. This is what they do. This is what Will Graham does he does something similar to this. Yeah. No, he does the exact same thing in Manhunter. He gets this newspaper to print a fake article in order to get Lecter to do something, to send a message to this other killer. So again, this is definitely, for me, it's the X-Files version of Silence of the Lambs, or a Thomas Harris novel.
So they let Boggs stew for a little bit after reading the article, and then they take him to his phone privileges. And when he sits down to the phone, he looks up at the cameras, but it's not a glance at the cameras. It's a watchful eye, as if he can almost see through them himself. Yeah. And Mulder's phone starts to ring. And when Mulder picks it up, at the other end of the line is Boggs, who's just like, "Why don't you believe, Mulder?" Scully believes.
Why doesn't he believe? Because how the hell did he get Mulder's number?
Yeah.
It's like Mulder's just so focused on not believing this guy that he doesn't even question how he got his number. But yeah.
And then on the phone, Boggs describes the kidnapper. Is it on the phone?
Hang on.
Nope.
He goes into a bit of a channeling mode, doesn't he? He just kind of drops the phone and he's like, and he's kind of channeling. And then Scully
convinces Mulder to deal.
So Scully basically says, "Look, Mulder, whether you believe this guy or not, he's our only possible way of tracking this guy down. So he might be this guy's accomplice. But if we don't deal with him, we're not going to find this guy." So then we go to the next scene after that is Boggs doing some channeling. So
if I remember right, this is cut with flashes of the attacker.
We get to see the killer with his coat hanger wire and
but it teases it at first. It shows little bits of him, and it's really, really well cut together, I found. As he describes the attacker, it tells Mulder and Scully where the attacker is, and also says to Mulder, "Don't go near the White Cross."
Yeah. And I like the... I'm probably digging a bit too deep here, but we see this little flash of the serial killer's face as he turns, and he has this little earring in it. And it looks just like the little earring that Buffalo Bill has in Silence of the Lambs.
Can't say that I noticed that one, Brian.
Yeah, but it's just very reminiscent. But I love the cutting. I love the way this scene is cut.
Yeah.
So when you see this guy, so this who's this guy? What's his name? I can't remember.
Lucas.
Lucas, that's it. Yeah. So this guy, Lucas, we see him, and he kind of swings this
coat hanger
wire at the kid. But as he swings it and it hits his face, we kind of cut to Boggs receiving the blow.
Yeah.
In like a cycle, but it's just the way it transitions from one location to the other, and the way it kind of cuts these two different scenes together. I just think it's really great cutting. It's really, again, brilliantly pieced together. It's a very well directed episode, this, I think.
And then we have the FBI raiding this building, and the kidnapper flees. And as Boggs predicted, Mulder gets shot near a white cross of sorts.
Yeah, it's a beautifully lit scene, this, I think. When they go in, it's just, the lighting is fantastic. I think you're always going to be able to do something with lighting when you're in a dark, dank kind of abandoned building. It's but it does work. It's very effective, very creepy.
So the Lucas gets away with Jim, the male victim, but the female victim's left behind.
Yeah.
And Mulder is in hospital, and Scully watches over him as the doctors begin their treatment on him. And the kind of sound fades out a little bit in that scene. It's quite a nice scene as well. Yeah. As everybody just hustles about, and Scully knows enough just to step backwards and not to get involved with what's happening.
And it's a bit of shock as well, really. She's got so much to process in that scene, because this whole episode is really about whether Scully can commit herself, open herself up to different possibilities, to something that isn't exactly scientific. And she... So she's literally just witnessed her partner get shot, but in detail that was described to her from this guy who claims to be channeling these spirits. So, was that a fluke, or does she really have to start believing now?
Exactly, and it comes into play later on, I guess, when they start talking about it being a setup, or they start trying to rationalise these things. How can you guarantee that blood's going to end up on something like a white cross? It's, it's a bit of a strange one. But then it jumps to the girl in the hospital who IDs her kidnapper.
Lucas Jackson Henry.
Yes. And then some other FBI guy appears with a whole file worth of exposition just to dump it onto Scully's lap almost. The guy's just there to tell her all about this Lucas character, and for some reason, out of nowhere, just to say that Boggs is guilty as well.
Yeah, and I'd never picked up on it before. Or at least I don't think I picked up on it before. But this guy says, when he's reading the guy's rap sheet, he's reading Lucas Jackson Henry's rap sheet, and he says he had previous arrests for sexual assault, narcotics, nothing big really. You tell that to the victims of sexual assault, and I think they'll be rearranging your face. Sexual assault, narcotics, nothing big really. Good grief! It just seems like the most insensitive detective ever, because his terminology is absolutely appalling.
So this guy, just at the tail end of it, starts to dump all this information about Lucas and Boggs being connected, and how everybody suspected that they were working as a team, but it was never proven, and how it just starts going on about how Boggs is extremely guilty of everything, and nobody should believe him. And then it cuts to Scully kind of storming in to the jail cell and just giving Boggs what for.
Love it.
Do you like getting told off by small redheads, Brian?
Oh man, Gillian Anderson commits. She really commits to that scene. She comes in, she starts off a bit quiet, she builds up, and then by the end of it, she's just screaming in his face. Mm-hmm. But she lets rip. She's literally just, all the walls come down. She goes in and just gives it her all. I love it.
Yeah, but then Boggs just turns the situation around 180 and just starts to tell this story in such a calm, easygoing fashion about stealing a cigarette, going outside, smoking it. But it wasn't about the cigarette, it's about the thrill of stealing it. And you can tell by Scully's reaction that it's her. And then she says, that could be anybody's story. And, it's just almost Boggs just proving his abilities again.
Yeah. Just brilliant, again, brilliant performance by Brad Dourif. It's just like every scene that these two are together, I love it. It's just absolutely fantastic.
And then from Boggs, from Scully coming in and being all hot-headed and shouting at him, to Boggs totally just stripping the situation down, completely turning it on her, to Boggs making her beg for him to speak to her dad.
Yeah. He wants a deal. Basically, he does not want to go back to that chair.
Yeah.
And for him, it's not about remorse. Mm-hmm. I don't get the sense that he feels remorse for what he's done. He's just afraid.
Yeah.
He's scared. But it's a real fear of going to hell. Mm-hmm. And
I don't know if it's hell, because he does say, he goes, my hell's going to be going to that chair forever. But I don't want to do it again while I'm alive. I think it's the walk of shame by all the victims.
See, I don't get the sense of remorse from this guy. I just get the sense of fear. He doesn't want to do that walk because, like you said, that's his hell, and he will probably relive that again and again. But I don't know. I mean, you could interpret that as remorse, I guess. Seeing the face of your victims, but to me, it just comes across more that he there's no attempt there from him to apologise.
Yeah.
There's no attempt at repentance, at saying, I'm sorry for what I did. There's he could tell Scully all the information she wants, all the information she needs to catch Henry, but he doesn't. He uses it as a bargaining chip instead. Mm-hmm.
You see the control he's got here, because he allows Scully's father to take over, calls her Starbuck again, and then you can physically see him wrestling himself back into control. He'll just go, no, that's all you're getting.
Yeah.
I need my deal.
Nobody talks until I get a deal. Yeah, it's just, but it's just, Boggs isn't repentant. So
in the next scene, you actually see Boggs sort of flashback to his last meal, and how he believes he got the psychic powers type of thing. And just having it's all black and white, and you just see the family watching over him. And then he walks out into the hall, and everybody's just judging him. And as he walks by them, they turn their back on him, type of thing. And it's terrific. It's a fantastic, creepy ass scene. Yeah. Just loved everything about that.
And it's just like, just this idea that they are there to witness him getting killed.
Yeah.
And again, that's the this thing in him, again, about it not necessarily being repentance. It's just they finally got the upper hand on him. He had power over them in life, and now they have power over him in death, and he hates that. It gets under his skin.
So we kind of cut to Scully trying to get a deal and getting shot down very easily. Everybody just believes that Boggs is just a super bad guy, and he must pay. So we jump to Mulder in the hospital, and even in his sickbed, he's still sceptical of Boggs. He's still telling Scully, do not trust this man. Whatever you do, just do not trust him.
It does kind of raise, I don't know, a little bit of doubt because so many people are against the idea that Boggs could be channeling these spirits, and because we're so used to being on Mulder's side, accepting what Mulder says, it does raise that kind of doubt, just a little bit, that he could be full of it.
But on the opposite hand, in any episodes we see with Mulder and everything is against him, it only strengthens his resolve to prove himself to be correct, which he usually does. So because we're seeing it from a different character standpoint, we start to have this duplicitous nature within the programme itself, and it's such a strange dichotomy. It's a change from what we normally see. I think it's a really clever twist on what we've seen up to here so far.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we have Boggs and Scully. And Scully tells Boggs that he's got his deal. And Boggs, just matter of fact, just tells Scully where to find Lucas. And just as the scene finishes up, Scully goes, if you were really psychic, you would know. And Boggs just cuts her off. There's no deal. But I know you tried.
Yeah.
and then just a wee momentary comment of Scully, don't follow the devil.
Yeah. So he says, don't follow him into the devil.
Right.
So yeah, which is obviously followed up when we get the FBI basically bursting in on Lucas Jackson Henry, and he runs away, takes out a few of the FBI guys, hits one with a barrel.
These guys are almost superhero because they seem to do that. It's like a trained SWAT, and they just seem to push them aside. Get out of my way.
Yeah. And he basically crashes through an old bridge that's just a bit weak. He's in this abandoned warehouse. And he plummets to his death right next to this painted sign of a devil. And there's no way that Boggs could have known. There's no way Boggs could have known that he would run up to there and fall through and end up getting killed.
Yeah.
But despite that, Scully starts to rationalise it.
Well, she goes to visit Boggs. And she says that she believes in Boggs and that he saved her life as well as Jim's, the boy that was kidnapped. And then Boggs says that he wants her to be her witness when he gets killed, and he's going to give the statement of what her father has been the message he's been trying to pass on.
Yeah.
And then it shows you Boggs getting his last meal with the spooky family, watching over them again, and then the sort of walk of shame where he tries to turn back away from it.
But just before we go on there, just that idea as well again of Boggs bargaining again, just like saying, "Look, I'm not going to give you your message now. I could do, either way. I'm going to the chair." But I'm going to actually make you come and watch me die. And it's like, again, just these games he plays, these mind games. It's a power game. He has power over Scully. And in his last moments, he wants to hold on to whatever power he can. Again, there's no remorse there. There's no repentance. Scully tells him, look, you saved my life. You saved the life of that kid. And to her, she's like, she's kind of throwing him a bone. She's kind of saying, look, you've done a good thing. But he doesn't actually take that for what it is. He doesn't give a toss, quite frankly. He's not bothered about repentance. That isn't his thing. He doesn't care that he saved these kids, because to him it's still just about the power. Just anything that can give him some amount of power in what little bit of life he's got left, he's going to take it. So in one respect, Mulder is absolutely right about this guy. This guy is just scum. But yeah, because of his abilities and what he does with them, we're lured into this false sense that maybe there might be a bit of redemption there for him, but there isn't. There is no redemption for this guy.
Yeah. And then we have the execution scene. Obviously, Scully's not present, and we see her with Mulder in the hospital, and it's almost as if somebody's flicked the switch and they've completely switched roles again. And Scully's rationalising everything, how things could have happened, and Mulder's like, "Why don't you believe?"
It's like, Scully, after everything you witnessed, after everything you've seen, why don't you believe? And it's like, she's just, what is it she says? She just says basically that she's too afraid, doesn't she?
Yeah, exactly.
And then Mulder is like, well, didn't you want to know what your father said? And she's like, I know what he said. He's my father. And that's it. So we get a repeat of that refrain that her mother said, and it's this idea that actually, yeah, you know what? I know he loved me. Yeah, we had our differences. Yeah, he didn't approve of my career, but it doesn't change the fact he was my father and he loved me. I don't need some serial killer channeling the dead to tell me that.
But she's assuming that that's what the message is going to be. I mean, the father was in the Navy. He could be telling her about this sort of large quantity of Nazi gold that he stumbled across and it's got planked somewhere. For the love of God, to get the gold.
Yeah, but again, that comes down to what she wants in it. Yeah. What is she searching for? What were the reasons she wanted to hear this message from Boggs? The reason was she wanted approval. It's this thing again that, you go back to that funeral sequence and she asks her mother, was he at all proud of me? So she's always seeking approval. And, you go back to the scene before that with the mother and father at the beginning, where the mother is kind of egging the father on, just, give her something, throw her a bone. She needs your approval. So it does show this side of Scully that we've not seen before, that she needs her father's approval. And she has this character growth. She goes on this journey through this episode where she can get to a place at the end where she actually, she doesn't need this message because she knows she's got her father's approval. And that's it. That's the end of the episode.
Yeah. So, overall, I thought this was an excellent episode. Really creepy, really atmospheric with some towering performances. But I think one of the best things about it was it's an almost Scully-centric episode where Mulder disappears halfway through. And we've had episodes where Scully has vanished and it's been Mulder, and they haven't been as good. And I felt that it really emphasised the character, progressed the character, gave her an obstacle to overcome, which was, in this one, grief and acceptance of her father. And you see the character grow throughout the episode, and then you have that juxtaposed with this really just nasty bad guy in this fantastic performance that could have been very caricature-y in somebody else's hands.
Yeah.
But you believe it in Brad Dourif's character. I really like this episode a lot, and it's going to give me a lot to think about when it gets to the end of the season. But it's easily a 5 out of 5. It's up there with Tombs. It's up there with Ice. It is a fantastic episode.
Yeah, I think people can tell from the way I've been talking about this episode, this is definitely a 2-star episode for me. Yeah. I'd give this 6. If we had 6, I'd give it 6. I love this episode so much. I've seen it so many times, and it never gets old for me. It's just so brilliantly put together. The editing on it is really sharp. It's really tight. So much happens in this one episode with regards to character development, with regards to the plot, yet it doesn't feel overloaded. It doesn't feel like it overstays its welcome. It's just perfect. A perfect episode of television. And again, those 2 performances by Gillian Anderson, who is absolutely brilliant in it, hits every emotional note, every emotional beat, just the way it should be. Definitely the best performance from her out of any episode so far. And again, like you said, Brad Dourif, as far as I'm concerned, never been as good as he is here. And I like him. I like him quite a bit in a lot of other stuff. So that's not me putting down anything else he's done. I just think his performance here is so strong. 5 out of 5, definitely.
And next up is Political Correctness Run Amok with Gender Bender. What a title! What a title for an episode. So is this another standout episode, Brian?
I will say no. We'll get there when we get there, but I think the thing this episode is probably most notable for is introducing X-Files fans to Nicholas Lee, who would, of course, go on to play Krychek, one of the, well, for my money, the best villain of the show. But yeah, he appears in Genderbender as a completely different character, but they clearly liked the guy so much they thought, you know what, let's bring him back as a full-on character, one of the best characters of the entire series. But yeah, that's about as much as I think Genderbender is notable for. But we'll get there when we get there.
Well, I have noticed a distinct trend in getting an excellent episode followed by an extremely mediocre one.
Yes.
So we'll see if that trend continues next episode with Genderbender.